Welcome back everyone. This is not an April Fool's video, by the way. We're going to be looking at the iPad Pro 3rd generation, the one that came out in 2018. Now you might be asking yourself, why are you reviewing this one? Why are you not reviewing the one that just came out, the latest one? Well, there's two reasons. One, this one was cheaper and I'm not made of money, so I have to pick the cheapest one I could find. I'm a broke boy like that, that's just how it is. But B, or two, I don't remember which one I started with, I can't necessarily find one that'll be shipped, at least the 4th generation iPads. I can't find anyone that can be shipped to me in time of me making these comparisons and everything. And I'd already bought this one, so I was like, I might as well review this one. So these ones, if you guys aren't familiar, came out in 2018. Now there's two different models. There's the 11-inch one and the 12.9-inch one. Now me personally, I've used a couple of these in the Apple Store back in the day when we were allowed to go outside, but not anytime recently. So I actually purchased the 11-inch one, but these two are almost the exact same thing every which way except for the screen size. What I will tell you though, when I first picked up the 11-inch one, I actually thought it was the 12.9-inch one because I thought it was so big. So this one actually I think is a really good size. However, you can always pick up that 12.9-inch one, which is considerably more expensive. Not a crazy amount, but it is noticeably more expensive in the used and brand new market, whichever way you're going to go about it. Now, these things, like I said, were announced and released back in 2018. So this year, it will be turning 2 years old. And the best advantage and the best thing about both of these devices, and the reason mainly to pick them up right now, is the price point. Because those new ones took the price tag of these ones have gone down in price quite a bit. I picked mine up for about $500. At least for the 11-inch one. The 12.9-inch one I've seen for about $600 to $650, and I'm sure they're going to get cheaper and cheaper as time progresses. So you can always go and pick these up on eBay or Craigslist for the cheapest ones, but I will find them on Amazon. I'll link them straight down in the description below. I think they're around $800, $799 I think for the 12.9-inch one, and I think $699 for the cheaper one, but I could be wrong. But those two will be linked down below in the description, so you can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now looking on the fronts of these, so you have the 11-inch model and the 12.9-inch model. Like I stated, both have IPS panels, which is really nice. The 12.9-inch one obviously has higher resolution, but both panels are very good at the end of the day. They have True Tone technology, which is really cool. Very slim bezels all across the display. Obviously, it's not a bezel-less design by any means, but it is a very good feeling iPad at the end of the day. One thing I really do like is the chassis of this device is actually just slimmed down and flat, kind of like the iPhone 5s and iPhone SEs, which makes this thing just feel that much better in your hands. And I personally do like how this thing feels. I've owned other iPads as well, the ones that are curved and everything, and those ones are cool too, but I definitely do like this one with the flat size, which makes this thing feel extremely nice at the end of the day. Now on top of the display, you do have that Face ID sensor, which at first I was like, okay, maybe I won't even care, I've used Touch ID for a long time, whatever, but honestly, Face ID on an iPad feels so nice, and I don't know why I like Face ID more on an iPad than on an iPhone. I'm not really too sure why, but it feels really nice whenever you just unlock it or whatever. Now, as you guys know, I just use an iPad as me. It's just like an alarm clock. That's really all I use it for. So maybe by me, spending a little bit more money and having this capable of a machine, maybe it'll make me, inclined to use the iPad more for different things. Who knows? But I still think it's kind of far away from, being my daily machine by any means. My main one is an iMac, but who knows, we'll see in the future. Now, interestingly enough, no lightning port on this thing. This thing has a USB Type-C port, which I think is extremely awesome. There's so many different dongles that I even have, and I barely even have. I don't even use my USB Type-C MacBooks, but I still have all those dongles left over, which are compatible with this thing too. And with iPadOS 13, that really unlocked so many new features and so many cool little bells and whistles into this device that really makes it feel that much, more like a computer at the end of the day. And even though this thing came out in 2018, it still feels like an extremely nice machine, which is something that I really applaud Apple for doing. This is a timeless iPad, and even if you look at the new 2020 iPad, dude, there's really no differences at the end of the day, and it's just slightly faster besides that camera on the back of the iPad Pro 4th gen. But the funny thing is that it's pretty much the same speed. Apple just unlocked an extra core as far as we know, and that's pretty insane at the end of the day. On the back, you can see a little 3 dots in the bottom for accessories and things, a single camera setup, which is still pretty decent. Obviously, it's nothing, like the new iPad Pro's camera with the LiDAR sensor and all that, but this one is still perfectly fine for a majority of people, and I honestly don't think a lot of people are going to be using their cameras on their iPads at the end of the day anyway. Now, an extremely important thing to note is that on that display on the front, on both the smaller and the bigger models, a really cool thing is that you have the ability of having that 120Hz refresh rate on those displays, which is really cool. every iPad Pro since the 10.5 inch one had it, I believe. And it's an extremely cool feature. I literally love that so much. It's one of my favorite things ever. And if you're in the market for it, having an iPad or having a tablet like that will make you more inclined to be using it. I have an iMac, I have a MacBook. Both those machines don't have any of those type of capabilities, but our iPads do. And my Samsung Galaxy S20 has that too. And it's one of my favorite features at the end of the day. And I literally love that so much. So that pretty much covers it up on the outside. There's really not too much more to hit on there. Now, in terms of the software, these things started off with iOS 12, but we were able to get iPadOS 13 on it, and it's going to be getting iPadOS 14, 15, 16, and maybe even 17, who knows. These things are going to be lasting for a very long time, and because of the A12X Bionic chip in these things are probably going to be getting an extra year of software versions as well, since the new iPad Pros have a variation of those A12 chips as well. It doesn't have that full A13 chip, so who knows, I guess we'll see what happens in the future, but that's something to consider. But in terms of iPadOS, I think it's a humongous step in the right direction. I love iPadOS. It's been a very good experience overall. And something I've been saying even since the beginning of iOS 11 is that iOS and iPadOS has always been better on the iPad side than on the iPhone side. So I've always felt like if, with iOS 11, for example, I had a really weird experience on my iPhones. It was a pretty weird, experience overall, random glitches, random shutdowns, all that stuff. But with iPadOS 11 on my iPad Pro or iPad Air 2 at the time, it was perfectly fine. Like, I had a pretty good experience overall. However, same thing here, iOS 13, a lot of people are complaining about it, even me. I'm having some weird experiences here and there, but iPadOS 13 has been very good so far. So say what you will, but I'm having a pretty good experience with iPadOS 13 so far. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of software. Now, hitting on the performance, both models, the bigger and the smaller ones, have pretty much the same exact specs. They have Apple A12X Bionic chips, an octa-core CPU, and there's several different models of all these. There's a 64, 256, 512, and 1TB models. Now, all three of the smaller models up to the 512 have 4GB of RAM. The top tier model just has 6GB of RAM, so keep that in mind. If you want to get an iPad that has that, top tier storage, you can always get that 1TB model. My specific one is that 64 4GB model, so it doesn't have the most amount of storage by any means, but it's still good enough for a lot of people, I think. Now, in my day-to-day use of using this thing so far, what I can tell you is that my experience has been pretty good. Obviously, it's like an extremely fast tablet. Really, anything I threw at it was perfectly fine. I did find one little weird issue, though. I'm sure you guys know it's already a good performing tablet. One thing is that with Real Racing 3 and some heavy intensive games, for some reason, it just seemed really choppy, and I'm not really too sure why. On phones like my iPhone XS that also has that A12 chip, for some reason that phone was able to run these games fine. My iPhone XR, XS Max, those phones are able to run Real Racing 3 perfectly fine, but for some reason my iPad was not able to do that. So I'm not really too sure why that was the case. It's not an end-all be-all, but that is something to consider. Maybe it has something to do with that large screen, maybe it has something to do with that 120Hz refresh rate, but the thing is that most games aren't even compatible with that, so they usually downscale it or they just don't even keep that feature enabled. So I'm not really too sure what happened there, but it is what it is. The rest of the performance of this thing has been tremendous so far. Again, that 120Hz refresh rate adds so much to the tablet that it literally feels like a brand new tablet every time I pick it up. A lot of things don't have this type of capability. Like I said, my Macs, my iMacs, my MacBooks, whatever, don't have that capability, and really, this iPad makes those things feel aged. Even if those things are maybe faster, this thing just feels smoother at the end of the day. So performance and everything is perfectly fine besides those few little gripes that I had earlier. Now, moving on to the camera, this thing does have a single 12 megapixel camera on the back. You can do 4K 60 frames, which is really cool. 1080p at up to 120. It's a camera at the end of the day. It's kind of like a mixture of like the iPhone XR's camera and like the iPhone 8's camera combined. It's like iPhone 8 quality, but with like the iPhone XR portrait mode, which is cool. But I didn't find the quality being that much better than a XR, so that's why it's a little bit lower than that. But the fact that this thing even has a pretty decent camera on it is still pretty surprising. So you have that capability on this iPad of shooting photos and videos and stuff, so that's cool. On that front camera, you do have a 7 megapixel camera on both, so that's really cool. Like I said, Face ID on the front sensor as well. So in terms of the camera, that really pretty much covers it up there. Now, ending it off with the battery life, the smaller model has a 7,812 mAh battery. That top tier model has a 9,720 mAh battery. Now, they both obviously charge through a USB Type-C port, but they can also reverse charge other devices too. So if you have an iPhone or something, it can take some of its power and charge up those phones as well, as long as you have a USB Type-C cable. It's not wireless charging. It's not like the reverse wireless charging we have on Samsung phones Hopefully this year Apple will bring that into either an iPad or iPhones or something. But we do have some capability there, which is really, really awesome. And battery life on both is really, really good. Even though the screens are pretty big and they have high resolution screens, it's been a pretty good experience overall for me at the end of the day. So to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, should you pick up the iPad Pro's 3rd generations, the 2018 models in 2020? Obviously, yes, these things are a complete steal right now. They are very good devices. If you're somebody who's a student and you don't know whether you want to go pick up a MacBook or an iMac or an iPad, if you're on like a budget, you can pretty much get everything you need out of a device for students. If you're somebody who needs to take notes, if you need to do a lot of crazy things, you can most likely do them on an iPad. My only gripe with that is sometimes if you need specific software, if you need to do certain things, you can't necessarily always get those done with an iPad. Same thing goes for work. Same thing goes for really anything. You're pretty much limited by the amount of software that you have in the App Store. And to be honest, a lot of the software that I use on an everyday basis is really dedicated to Macs or Windows or whatever, and most of the time you have to find alternatives to these devices. It's not a big deal though. I'm sure for a lot of people you'll be okay with it, and I think for the time being, for this thing being the price that it is, I think it's a tremendous pickup for a ton of people in 2020. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.